The Long Beach Unified School District is so excited to launch a new series of podcasts focused on showcasing the amazing work our people are doing to meet the needs of every student every day. The first episode we were going to launch back in March of 2020 was the Principal Project. But as you know, things have drastically changed. So now we've decided as a media team to pivot and focus on the work that our people are doing to meet the needs and lead our students through this time of crisis. We're grateful for you, our listeners, and hope that you enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the #Proud to be LBUSD podcast series, Leading Students Through Times of Crisis. I'm your host, Christopher J. Itzen, and for our first ever episode, I am so pleased to introduce our guests. First, we have LBUSD Board of Education member Megan Kerr, who represents the 1st District, and Long Beach Mayor Dr. Robert Garcia. Board member Kerr and Mayor Garcia, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Sure thing.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so as a longtime born and bred Long Beach individual, as a student of Long Beach Unified, Long Beach City, Cal State Long Beach, this community is dear to my heart. I work here, I live here. I always think of how exceptional and unique Long Beach is. So the first question I'm going to throw out to both of you, and either can answer, is what does Long Beach mean to you, considering your backgrounds as longtime members of this community? What do you think of first when it comes to our city? When you think of all the unique things about Long Beach, what stands out immediately to you?
I'm going to actually ask the mayor to start first because, Chris, you started about being a born and raised Long Beach person as I am. And I think it's interesting to hear what those folks who are not, who chose Long Beach as their hometown, have to say, and then I'll kick in at the end.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, for me, I used to come to Long Beach as a kid to Mother's Beach all the time, and that was our beach that we were, kind of growing up. And then I moved to Long Beach as a freshman at Long Beach State. So then I never left. And I think I chose Long Beach because you just fell in love with, I think, what everyone loves about it, whether you were born here or moved here, which is it has a unique kind of feel of community, even though it's still this really big city. And so, Long Beach is this enormous community. It's huge. I mean, I always say it's the same size as Atlanta, Georgia, population-wise, but yet feels still like a community. And it's diverse. There's great people here. And I think that's a culture of moving forward and a culture of inclusion that I think has a lot of history in the civil rights movement and the LGBTQ rights movement in the city and why that population is so large, in kind of the strength of our public school system. I think it has a lot to do with what makes Long Beach really great. So I think it's really that community feel that people love about it.
And I love hearing people who chose Long Beach as their hometown describe Long Beach in almost the exact same way that I would as someone who was born and raised here. And I think that's part of the magic is we are a community, all of us together. And it doesn't matter if you chose to come here as a teenager or if you were born and raised here, that we all have this equal stake in each other and this equal stake in our community and wanting it to be strong and wanting it to be better. And that the diversity of who is here by nature of being born here or moved here is one of our greatest strengths. So I would echo what the mayor said about feeling like this is a small town in a great big city with a ton of potential. And having raised my 3 children in it, I understand that as some of them have left out of state to go to college, that being from Long Beach is one of the greatest gifts that they bring to their college campus.
Yeah, it's so fascinating how that, and that's like that you hear that both your sentiments echoed when you ask anybody this question, whether you're born and bred or you're a transplant to Long Beach, that connection. And that, I always joke, if I go to Target or Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, I'm gonna run into somebody I know, whether it's a student or family member, community member, because that's just Long Beach being massive, but at the same time that small town feel. So thinking of your identity within being community members of Long Beach, and both of you, your rich history in leadership with Long Beach, from the mayor, and this is totally truncated and abbreviated, but from your role in city government at Cal State Long Beach, from being a council member, from being on the Coastal Commission to now being the mayor. Megan, working with the North Long Beach Initiative and strategic plan work groups, being part of the PTA, the Alexandria House work that you've done. You both have had a tremendous amount of experience leading specifically for this community. So thinking of those roles, you've both had other roles as well as being just community members, and thinking of events like being around during 9/11, the financial crisis of 2009, and now the impact of the COVID-19 crisis. And it just keeps coming to my mind as we're thinking of our virtual graduation and ending the year, how our high school students kind of, that's their bookend. You know, they kind of were born at the time of 9/11 and they've gone through all of this, and now they're capping off their secondary educational experience with this. What would you tell them based on how you face these challenges, how you've led people in the past? What would you say directly to all of our students during this time?
You know, the interesting thing is I was the parent of a kindergartner in September of 2001. And so I remember standing with my neighbors and my children's classmates' families, wondering what was going to happen. What is this world that all of a sudden these little ones embarking on their education career are now living in? And being really unsure of how we move forward. And I think we moved forward, number one, because we have to. It's who we are. But watching families and communities embrace each other to move forward gave me the most hope. That it wasn't that, unlike today where we have to be distant physically from some folks, that was a time of really coming together. And so this challenge, I think, is different than that. And as we move forward in new ways, really understanding who we are and who our peers are and how they're experiencing the world is really important. That 9/11 felt like something we all understood and it happened to us collectively. Whereas the experience I think our families had in 2009 during the financial crisis and is having now is we have kids who are having very different experiences from each other. And that the best way to move forward, which we will, is to really have empathy and compassion for how we're experiencing this time and using what we know to be true, which is our appreciation of diversity and the talent that we have to really pull together, not necessarily physically, but connecting with people and walking through this together. I think that's really critical right now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. I think also, having lived through 9/11, I was the student at Cal State Long Beach when that happened. And I remember I was actually living in my fraternity house, off-campus housing. And, that the tragedy happened. But I think that this is very different than those experiences, I think. And I think that when 9/11 happened, the recession happened. Oftentimes they happen, but they're not immediately impacting everyone in the same way. And so 9/11 in many ways seemed far away. It certainly impacted us. It was loss of life, damage to the economy, a war. So a lot happened. But I think for a lot of people, it felt distant. So this feels, I think, very personal to everybody. And the impacts are felt even in some of the simplest of things that we do to bring happiness, like a graduation or a prom. I mean, people were still going to graduations and proms after 9/11. And I think this is in many ways a different type of devastation on us as a country because it has pulled us apart. And unfortunately, it's been politicized as well. And so there are a lot of politics involved in what really should be a discussion about science and facts and doing the right thing for the most vulnerable people, especially. So I think this is going to really change young people. I think I'm really proud of the way young people have reacted generally. I think that people understand how serious this is. I also think that this next generation is going to learn that the social safety net that we have is really not as strong as we've thought. And I think it's going to be up to young people to see, this really affected older adults and seniors and the most poor and the most vulnerable. And we've got to change society to ensure that if and when a similar type of tragedy happens in the future, and it will, because there will be other pandemics, there will be there'll be war, there'll be other types of things that will happen in the future, that we've got to make sure that the social safety net is stronger. And so I think that's going to be an opportunity for this next generation to really build a better country and world. I really hope we start doing that quickly. And so I think it's a unique time for us.
It's really that call to action now. I mean, there's not really a lot of time to wait for that.
No time to waste.
This generation is being pushed so much faster. And you're right. You think of comparing those tragedies, the acceleration, the need for innovation, the need to figure this out is so much. It's impacting so many more people directly at the same time.
Right, and it's unending at this point. And it goes back to that idea that kids who are going to school in Long Beach, if we look at our high schools in particular, it's an incredibly diverse group of people with different life experiences, different backgrounds. They've come from different places. Our kids know how to be in relationship with people who have different experiences with them. They just do. And I think that part of that helps us hang together a little more so than other places. So as kids are going out to innovate and change the world, they already know how to work with people who come from different ethnic backgrounds, who come from different cultural backgrounds, who come from different religious backgrounds, not because they've read about it, but because that's who Long Beach is we live together every single day. We go to school together every day. And so that's the gift they bring to the innovation, is being able to collaborate with a really diverse group of folks.
And even if sometimes I find that some of our older adults or some of our parents may not always be on the same page in this kind of celebration of kind of science and diversity and a worldview that's inclusive of everyone. I'm not worried about the kids, and I'm not worried about the high school kids, and I'm not worried about the college kids, because the future of the city is even brighter than those of us that are adults and sometimes the petty things that we fight over.
So let's take that down another road, thinking about that, the need for innovation, the need for building further systems of inclusivity and support, and recognizing, optimistically that our students understand that more than even we do now. Let's talk about some logistics and collaboration. So as we face this pandemic head on, continue to experience the impact of the situation, when thinking of the interconnectedness of our city government, Long Beach Unified having 10,000 plus employees, being the largest employer in the city, impacting 70,000 families that primarily live in the community or the greater community, what have been some of the highlights or ways that both entities have collaborated or worked together to support the most in need, or our entire community, with messaging, with different supports? How have we, when we were all forced to the stay-at-home order hitting hard and then the schools closing, what were ways that basically our district leadership and then our city government leadership came together, and what are some of those intersectional points?
I mean, I'll start. I think that first, the district's been really fantastic on this issue, and they've been a complete partner in this crisis. And I think early on, the key thing was communication, and so I really appreciate the leadership of the district and the board, and certainly the superintendent, because we were all talking constantly about the best ways of approaching this. And I've had multiple times talking to the superintendent, obviously, to Chris, about what was going to go on at the schools, and were they going to be closures, were there not, and things were changing so fast. But real quickly, the partnerships formed. I mean, we immediately worked with the school district to open up testing sites on campuses. We immediately we promoted and uplifted the work the school district was doing in getting meals to not just students, but to families and to kids across the city. There were partnerships in using some of those food systems to get meals to other programs that were going on at the city. And we were helping put out the district's message in ways that we could, and they were doing the same, vice versa. So it was an immediate partnership, because I think the relationships were already there. And and the city, to me, the city and the school district are symbiotic. We're all part of the same kind of Long Beach family. We're all Long Beach, and they both have to work together for there to be success. And I think that's happening right now in this crisis.
And I think one of the ways that is important to remember is that the district and the city have had strong leadership and strong relationship for a long time. In some cities, you don't necessarily have that, and there's a little bit of animosity or who's infringing on whose territory and who belongs to whom. And it goes back to that idea of, we know we all belong to each other. And the city has the things that the city's taking care of. We have the things that are specific to the school district, but they're all our residents and they're all our constituents. And so us taking care of any kid in Long Beach who needs a meal is a perfect example of, it isn't about what Long Beach is doing for Long Beach Unified. It's about how are we taking care of our community. So we've had leadership, fortunately, at the city level, at the school district level, at the board level, that we understand that we are interdependent in a way that makes caring for our community a necessity. And so it isn't about who's right, who's turf, who gets credit. It's about making sure that students and families are being served, especially in a crisis moment. But I'm always deeply appreciative of the work that the city does in including our leadership, whether that's having them come down to the Emergency Operations Center at those early days where information was changing so that we had the information that they did, so there didn't have to be a lag, so that we made sure everybody was safe. So the constant communication and respect for the work that each other does has been really critical to this, and I think we could all be really proud of that work.
And you brought that up. I mean, you think of even from the academic pursuits, the Long Beach College Promise, the connectivity between our junior college or state college or in the city and LBUSD. We already have these natural deep relationships. And so it felt like, as somebody who works in communications for the district, it was seamless in, okay, how do we support each other in messaging and how that all worked and stuff. So I think that's such an encouraging piece to reach those most vulnerable families especially. So I want to leave you with I want to ask you one last thing before we leave. So last week, information regarding our first ever district-wide, proud to be LBUSD, class of 2020 virtual graduation ceremony has gone out. We have a lot of buzz on it, but at the same time, a lot of confusion, some frustration. It's not what our seniors wanted. As a former classroom teacher, I remember every time I've walked across or watched my kids walk across that stage that this is not what they intended. But since we have to go this way, it's, one thing that Long Beach Unified always does is that we innovate and we say, okay, if we're going to have to go this way, how are we going to adapt and how are we going to do something that I believe is going to be something so much more memorable for our kids than they even realize at this point, where the city is going to be able to come together along with our entire district and all of our high school students. And so rumor has it, since I saw some in the press releases, that both of you are speaking in the ceremony. And so not to spoil it or anything, but can we get any highlights or sound bites of what you're going to be saying? And if you don't want to go down that direction, just anything you'd like to specifically say to our graduates leading up to this time.
So yes, we're both going to be speaking, and I couldn't be more proud. I'm equally sad to be missing graduation season. My favorite part is helping students fix their lays and their caps before they go on to the stage to receive their diploma and have their moment, and I want that for them. But we know that for safety's reasons, that's not possible. So I think as we move forward in this virtual world, we got a little bit of a taste on Saturday night of the Graduate Together celebration of what that can look like a little bit. And my daughter's college did theirs on Sunday, and we watched that. And so it's not the same, but it is an opportunity to really tell our students how proud we are of them and how much we need them to do those things that we're talking about, to do the innovating, to reach out, to make the difference, to make the changes. I know that our students can do that, and they do it every year, and they make us proud every year. And I want them to remember that we need them not just to innovate for the world, but we need them to innovate for Long Beach. One of the things I always tell the graduation families and students at Jordan is to go out and do big and bold things and then come back and tell us how you did it and help the next group of students do that same thing, that we really need them to come back to us and to share all of the amazing things that they're going to learn in the next part of their life. So I am looking forward to wishing them well and hearing about what adventures are next for them.
Yeah, me too. I think also as a educator, and I've done a lot of graduations. In fact, I do a graduation still, I think, every year since I've been mayor. Just whether it's a middle school or at the college or the high schools, I've always tried to do at least one or two graduations every graduation season. So I'll miss that this year. I think that it is the best part of any school year, or is that, and I think that our high school graduates know that they are going to miss out on that, and that is part of the sadness in what we're doing. But they're going to get something very unique and different that probably no other class is going to get, which is this kind of very different type of virtual experience, and the memory and the resilience that will come from it. I think that this class is going to learn and have experiences that other classes will not, and they're going to be able to go out into the world and use that to make changes and improve society. And at the end of the day, that's the best part about these kind of shared moments of challenge, is you end up with people that rise and meet that challenge. And I think that our students will definitely do that. And so, we're happy to say hi to them, and we're going to wish them well. And there'll be all three of us have been through graduations, and they are great, but there's a lot more good things to look forward to.
Awesome. Well, thank you both, Board Member Megan Kerr, representing not only the 1st District, but also all of our LBUSD families, and Long Beach Mayor Dr. Robert Garcia for joining us for the first #Proud to be LBUSD podcast series, Leading Students Through Times of Crisis. We're so appreciative of your willingness to connect with our community through this format during this challenging time. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.